Hey there folks, John here with Through My Lens, and today I'm coming to you with another knife-related video. Today we're going to be taking a look at the Shirogorov F3 NS. Now fans of Through My Lens will know that last month I picked up a Hatian Zero. This one right here. And I ended up being far more impressed with that knife than I really thought I would be, and I immediately started looking for a larger Shirogorov. I thought either a Hati or a Hati R, the R being standing for refined. Now, I still might pick one of those up eventually. Recon One, which is a dealer, recently posted on their Instagram account about getting a small batch of these F3 NS examples with blue carbon fiber and blue hardware. Now, the F3 really wasn't on my radar because I generally prefer frame locks over liner locks. But when I saw the pictures of this F3, I just knew that I absolutely had to snag it. I normally am not very lucky when it comes to getting in on high demand knives when they drop, but I was able to get one of these knives which sold out minutes after Recon One posted about them coming in. So I feel really fortunate about that. Now, the F3 is a pretty well-established model within the Shirogorov product line, having been introduced in February of 2013. Now, while very similar in appearance to both the F95 and the Hati, it differs in construction by being, again, a liner lock and employing titanium liners. They're not stainless steel, they're actually titanium. Now, incidentally, the F95 was introduced in August of 2010, so it recently celebrated its 10-year anniversary. The F95 is the oldest Shirogorov product offering. Shirogorov knives started sometime between 2003, when Sergei Shirogorov started making knives full-time, and 2009, when Sergei moved his shop out of his apartment and into a two-story garage and began hiring employees. So it's the company is more well-established than some in this industry, but it's still a pretty young company, by my yardstick. Now, one of the challenging things about Shirogorov is all of the variations that exist within their models. Variations like Slim, or R for, again, refined, or in this case, NS, which stands for New Style. And just don't get me started with club knives or custom division knives or even full-on custom knives. These are all variations that can be found within some of the various models. But this F3 NS is new for 2020, and again, NS standing for New Style. It seems to carry over all of the upgraded features previously found in the F3R, adding some modest cosmetic enhancements. Now, Fabrizio of Fablades here on YouTube does a marvelous comparison of the previous F3R to this year's F3 NS. And if you're wondering which is better, well, the F3 NS is actually more refined than the F3 refined. So, to kind of prove that point, let's go over the features of the F3 NS. Now, of course, the most prominent feature are these 3D milled carbon fiber handle scales that have blue accents. One of the things I've really come to admire about Shirogorov is their mastery of carbon fiber. No other manufacturer that I'm aware of rivals the sheer number of variations of carbon fiber that Shiro has done. The F3 NS alone has a black variant, blue, bronze, purple, and there may even be others that I haven't seen yet. So it's really, really very impressive. The scales on this knife I find to be a nice departure from the more common Shirogorov black carbon fiber scales that you more typically see. Again, something more like here on this Hatian Zero that I have. Now, Shirogorov has an official Facebook group, and a few of us that were lucky enough to get one of these on their most recent drop from Recon One posted photos, and I noticed something very interesting. The variation found in the pattern on these knives was striking. Some that I saw were more prominently black, while others like mine were quite prominently blue. No two really seemed alike. I feel really lucky that I got one like this that's has a very strong presence of the blue, within the carbon fiber. Now, new in the NS models this year is this extra bit of milled pattern that's found on both scale sides. Hoping I can capture. Yep, there you can see it very well. It's there, and it's on this side as well, just beneath the pocket clip. The carbon fiber, in the scales, I don't know how they arrive at this blue color. Carbon fiber, of course, is not naturally blue, so I'm not sure if they've weaved some other material in there for this blue, or if some dyeing is. I don't know. I will say that the entire scale has an iridescent quality. It's not unlike a snake skin shining, in the sun. When the light just hits it just right, you can just see this iridescent quality to it. That's just stunning. And again, thanks to the millwork that exists here in these 3D mill scales, there's actually quite a bit of texture that really adds some nice traction to the grip. The scales on this F3 NS are without a doubt the most stunningly gorgeous carbon fiber scales I've ever owned. So I'm just really impressed by that. Now, the blue anodized clip and the back spacer, just fantastic here. This is also something you just don't see very often on most other Shirogorov knives, and I love blue. I'm a big fan of blue and anodized blue components. Now, these anodized blue components are darker and more of a matte blue than what I'm accustomed to seeing on anodized titanium hardware. But given that these scales are pretty in your face and kind of look at me sort of styling, I think the more understated approach to the hardware keeps this unique knife classy in appearance. I think if they would have been, more a brighter, shinier anodized components, it might have kind of crossed that line into being a bit more gaudy and tacky. So Shiro's kept it classy. Now, looking at the blade, this is a 3.7-inch M390 blade steel drop point blade with that amazing Shiro light stonewash finish. Very light build boarding. You can of course see the Shirogorov bear on the presentation side. On the clip side, you do see the blade steel demarcation there. So again, they've kept it understated here, kept it very classy. Very much enjoy that about Shirogorov. One of the new features again in this NS model is that the blade has quite a bit more belly than what we saw in the previous generation, and I like that look a lot. Really a big fan of the blade here on the F3 NS. Another new cosmetic feature for this year is some new milling or jimping done into the spine of the blade. My guess is this pattern is supposed to somewhat mirror the kind of gear pattern that's found in the back spacer. I will tell you that, while it's pretty, it really doesn't offer much in terms of traction at all. So, I don't prefer it to more traditional jimping on the knife, on the spine of the blade from a functional perspective. It's attractive, again, but not particularly practical or useful. Now, these titanium liners that are found in the blade are heavily skeletonized in order to reduce weight. They also employ, much like a titanium frame lock, they employ a stainless steel insert. So you're not going to find any of that dreaded Shiro stick with this knife. There's also some nice relief milled into the lock bar, so this is very, very comfortable to release the blade. No issues there. You don't have to use a whole lot of pressure to do it, and again, the relief makes it very, very comfortable. Now, the knife does employ other high-end features such as a ceramic detent ball and, of course, the Shirogorov multi-row bearing system, or MBRS. Now, they do use stainless steel bearings in their MBRS system. I'm not really sure why stainless steel bearings are used when most manufacturers seem to have gone to ceramic bearings, in their bearing systems. So that is curious to me. I'm not sure why that is. There probably is a good reason for it. Again, this milled titanium pocket clip, it really is amazing. It is one of the best I've ever seen on a knife, and it's certainly more detailed. As a matter of fact, I'm seeing more detail milled into this clip than I'm seeing on the custom division knives, even just from a year or two ago. So really, really impressed at all the detail that's gone into the pocket clip. And it does go over and off your pocket just like you would expect it to. It's very secure. Just extremely impressed with the Shirogorov pocket clip here on the F3 NS. Now the knife is surprisingly light for being really quite a large knife. It's 4.66 ounces on my scale, and usually I can carry inside the pocket carry any knife under 5 ounces during the week. I don't have any problems or issues with this knife. It's a little thicker than some may like, but it's right in line with a lot of the other more overbuilt knives that I tend to like to carry. So no issues there from me. I also, I typically comment on the defensive application of any knife that I review, because that is a consideration for me as a concealed carry permit holder. I do like to make sure that if pressed, any knife that I'm carrying can be used in a defensive application, and I can tell you I have no concerns whatsoever if this knife were needed in a defensive scenario. You've got plenty of blade length here, and there's some great ergonomics and traction. Again, no issues from a defensive perspective. Now this is considered a production level Shirogorov, what others might even consider a mid-tech. Now from here, going up the Shirogorov hierarchy, again, there are club knives, there are custom division knives, and finally full-on customs. And I think it's amazing how many features which are in this knife, which were once only found in the more exclusive models, such as that MRBS system. They really, in the production knives, you used to find washers, and then eventually, you got a single row bearing system, but now more and more you're seeing the MRBS system in Shirogorov production level knives. So I'm really pleased about this. Let's go over kind of the pros and cons of the Shirogorov F3 NS. And at the top of the list of what's attractive about this knife has got to be the fact that it is just stunningly gorgeous. It truly is just a stunner. It might be a little over the top for some, but again, for me, it doesn't cross that line into being tacky. I think it's quite unique. The action, right out of the box, this knife has an amazing deployment action. The detent is near perfect as far as I'm concerned. Maybe even a little bit on the light side, but just so good, just so good. It's not quite drop shut. That MRBS system, you're going to get more points of contact or more points of resistance or friction against the blade than a more traditional two-row bearing system would provide. But the trade-off there is that you have a lot of gained smoothness and stability than you do in other knives, and that's really something you can both definitely hear and feel with the bearings in this knife. I have to say, this year I've had the opportunity to experience some of the best knife actions that the market has to offer. Holt, Koenig, and of course Shirogorov, and I truly feel blessed to have these experiences. And I can tell you that the deployment action on the Shirogorov is really something that has to be experienced. Again, and something that I think differentiates and it's something that's appealing about this knife. This particular model has cosmetic features you really just don't often see on other production level Shirogorovs, such as the uniquely colored carbon fiber handle scales and the anodized hardware. Very, very, very unique within Shirogorov. Also on the pro side, carbon fiber is practically indestructible. It's one of my absolute favorite knife scale materials. You don't really have to worry about scuffing up the scales from everyday use. So the fact that it has carbon fiber handle scales front and back, really is a big positive to this knife. You're going to be far less concerned about carrying this, and it's going to look brand new forever. And I think for a production level Shiro, let's just call it a mid-tech, it has high-end features, relative to other knives in the marketplace. Of course, the blade steel, the premium M390 blade steel, the bearing system that's here, titanium liners that are milled for weight reduction, the milled titanium pocket clip. No question that this is a high-end knife, and it compares very favorably with other mid-techs on the market. Of course, you can't talk about the positives of this knife without talking about the just superior quality that Shirogorov is known for. No blade play whatsoever, just perfectly centered blade, no issues there. No imperfections, and really no break-in required at all for this knife. It was perfect right out of the box. I think the weight of the knife, particularly relative to its size, I think is on the pro side of things. I think it's surprisingly light and very well balanced too. So I like that a lot. Now, of course, no knife is perfect. There are some negatives associated with this F3 NS, and a lot of what I'm going to talk about are negatives that I talked about with my Hatian Zero review. Certainly, probably at the top of the list is this proprietary hardware that's found, in these Shirogorov knives. It's pretty to look at, but it's not easy to remove. I did buy, one of these Shirogorov pen tools that has bits that do fit the screws on their knives. So hopefully that will make things a little easier, when I go to disassemble and clean this. Sort of related to that is the MRBS system that they use does not employ captured bearings. So, when you do take this apart, you do have the potential for the bearings just going everywhere and getting lost. I did buy some spare 1.5 millimeter bearings off of Amazon just in case that should happen. They're not too hard to find. Again, you can get them on Amazon. They're cheap, but I'm just not looking forward to having to deal with that number of little bearings when I take it apart. Of course, there's Shirogorov being a Russian-based company. There's no U.S. presence for the factory, though buying from Recon One is kind of a nice compromise solution, you will. Between a company that on one end of the spectrum is based in the U.S. and versus one that's not. If you do have a problem, send it to Recon One. They can deal with some minor things, in their shop. I think they can do like resharpening, for example. And if it's something that they can't take care of, then they will deal with the factory direct to rectify any issues, warranty or otherwise. So that is an advantage of buying them from Recon One. Another negative, kind of mentioned this before, but this jimping, if you want to call it jimping on the spine here, is not particularly functional. It's purely cosmetic, and it offers almost zero traction. I will say, I think the ergos are still pretty good, and I'm not sliding around too much. I have a pretty good, grip on the blade, even with the purely cosmetic jimping that's there. Now, while these scales may resist showing wear, I think it remains to be seen how robust the anodized components will be on this. The robustness of anodization I found, it does vary kind of wildly. Chris Reeve anodization on their thumb studs, I mean, that stuff will wear off just by looking at it, it seems. I have other knives that have anodized components that are far more wear resistant. But generally speaking, any anodized component will show some wear eventually. And again, Shirogorov not being based in the US, it's going to be a little bit more challenging to deal with. Probably the biggest negative associated with this knife has to be the price. At $900, this knife is insanely expensive, yet insanely desirable at the same time. You certainly do get a lot for your money with this knife, particularly when you look at other Shiros from years past. I think this knife compares very favorably with higher priced custom divisions, even from just a couple of years ago. My friend Fabrizio of Fablades, again, he did review an F3 custom division from the previous generation earlier this year, and I would encourage you to check that review out, because I think you'll be surprised at just how much of the F3 custom division is captured in this F3 NS. I think it's also fair to say that the F3 NS delivers an experience that's really unparalleled by any other knife that I own. Is it perfect? No, but it is uniquely Shirogorov, and it does have a mystique and a desirability about it that's difficult to put into words. I'd really like to believe that my Shirogorov quiver is pretty full. That remains to be seen. Again, it's possible I may try to pick up a hottie in the future. The Hottie Zero that I have really is my ideal dress knife, and this F3 NS is kind of a grail EDC for me. Yeah, at this price point, I do find it difficult to recommend either of these knives without reservation. Instead, I've really tried to provide enough information to allow you to make your own determination. If you have the means, I think the F3 NS is clearly worthy of consideration, even if it would mean having to sell several lesser knives in order to fund the acquisition. Well, there you have it. There is my review of the Shirogorov F3 NS. It was a little long, but there was certainly a lot to go over with this knife. I hope you've enjoyed this video. Take care, God bless. We'll see you in the next one. I hope you've enjoyed this production from the Through My Lens YouTube channel. If you did, please click on the like button and do share the video on social media. If you'd like to see more content like it, please do subscribe to the channel, follow me on Instagram and Facebook, and do check out Through My Lens at www.throughmylens.org.